Alright, hey guys, thanks for checking out my video. The Wild Strike of Extremes Trickster is so insanely fun, I had to make a video about it. So that was a bossing showcase, and now I'm going to do a quick little mapping showcase here. I'm just going to run a big strongbox tier 16 map here so you can see what the regular mapping looks like. This character is insanely powerful, and it is using Whispers of Infinity paired with the new Coiling Whisper Ring to get Soul Eater for big attack speed. And I'll explain how that works right now. So the way you get the Soul Eater stacks is with Bladefall of Trarthus. And Bladefall of Trarthus, if you've never used this before, all you have to do is press the button once and it turns on and it just rains down Bladefalls forever. So you can see the Bladefalls are just constantly going around my character. And we're able to use this forever because it costs energy shield because of Whispers of Infinity. Normally it would cost mana and you would run out of mana, but we just can forever sustain it with our energy shield. And then as soon as we hit enemies with it, they get cursed with Hex Touch Temporal Chains, which you want to keep at level 1 because you want the curse duration to be very short for Coiling Whisper to work. So as soon as we hit stuff with this, they get cursed, and then the curse falls off very quick, and we just gain the Soul Eater stacks. And that happens basically automatically. Our curse duration is 0.46 seconds. And so it's very, very easy, very automated to keep these curses up. All you have to do is press the button once when you go on the map, or go on a boss, or whatever, and the stacks will pretty much just always be up. It's very easy. So I'll just blast through this map real quick. You can see the map clear is really, really good. But the lightning chains are very, very strong. And tier 17s on this looked basically just like this. Just as fast as this. So we have Whirling Blades for very fast, snappy movement. With Frostblink on top of it. Clear out the rest of these boxes real quick, and then I'll talk about the rest of the character. So sometimes it can happen where your Soul Eater stacks will start to fall off. Like right here, they fell off. And that's actually because I'm killing stuff too fast. Because the Bladefall is not able to actually hit anything. So if that ever happens, all you really have to do is just kind of stop attacking for 1 second. And then your Bladefall will hit stuff and they'll get cursed. And then you see the Soul Eater stacks will just come right back. And most of the time, you don't really have to do that. Especially if you're doing like more juiced content and the monsters are surviving longer than half a second. But if it ever does happen, all you have to do is just kind of let your Bladefall hit something, and then those Soul Eater stacks will come right back. And there you have it. Kill this Merc real quick. Click on the altars. I forgot to click the altars. Alright, so there you go. The map is done, and now I'll talk about the character. So Whispers of Infinity allows us to bypass the downside of Wild Strike of Extremes. So Wild Strike of Extremes inverts enemy resistance, which is extremely powerful, but it has a massive cost to counterbalance that power. And so normally the skill costs life, mana, and energy shield, like really high costs, which are hard to mitigate. But Whispers of Infinity turns the cost entirely into energy shield. And so my skill costs 264 ES. That's with item rarity on too. If I put on a 6th link, it costs 342 energy shield. But that is totally fine if you go CI and you have a big ES pool, and then we have really good Trickster Leech. So we go Soul Drinker Trickster, and then I have 2 instant leech masteries here for 15% instant leech, which lets me just sustain my ES very, very easily. And so we can mitigate the downside with Whispers of Infinity. Whispers of Infinity also allows us to easily keep Bladefall of Charthus up all the time because we never have to worry about running out of mana. If you did run out of mana, then the Bladefall would turn off and you'd have to return it back on again. But this makes it very easy. It just stays on for the whole map. You never have to worry about reactivating it. So that's very, very powerful. And then Whispers of Infinity also gives us a massive chunk of energy shield too. 450 plus energy shield, which is good. And then Coiling Whisper, you need the Bladefall to enable the Soul Eater stacks, and I already kind of showed you how that works. And there you go. So that's the core setup of the build. And then we also use Rune Graft of Treachery to with Purity of Lightning to give the enemies Purity of Lightning. So the more res the enemies have, that gets inverted with Wild Strike of Extremes. That's good. So hits treat enemy LE res values as inverted. So we run Purity of Lightning along with the Rune Graft to get even more damage. So that's kind of the core setup of the build. And then now I'll talk about some other stuff. So Whisper's Soul Eater Leash is what I just covered, and I'll show you the rest of the gear. The claw I have here is Pure Fizz with Lightning. So double Fizz, Lightning, and then attack speed, crit, crit. And the way I made this was Wrath Essences until I hit the flat Fizz, and then I Veiled Orbed, prefixes can't be changed, Veiled Orb, Veiled Chaos Orb until I got the prefix. And then once the prefixes are done, you Reforge Speed, and I actually got really lucky and Reforged Speed and hit the crit multi on the Reforged Speed. But if I didn't do that, I would have had to do a add remove crit on the Harvest Bench to get the crit mod, and then you craft the last crit mod, whichever one you don't hit. So that's how you make the claw. And then the helmet is 500 ES, and then with accuracy and some int. I got lucky slamming the int. The accuracy was the important mod there. You have to have accuracy somewhere on the build to be hit capped. And then Fizz taken as chaos, and then damage per power charge. There's not really a great Searing Exarch implicit on the helmet on this build. So damage per power charge is about the best one. And then for the shield, you just want as much defenses as possible on the prefixes. And then ideally I would want attack speed on a suffix here, but I haven't made a new shield yet. This is like the last item I still need to make. But big defenses, int, attack speed on the shield. And then for boots, we have res, int, and then just defenses and movement speed. And then brittle ground, fizzes extra cold. You do need to have a source of cold and fire damage for Taming, which I'll talk about now. So Taming gives you tons of res, and then you get a lot of increased damage. And the way you need to have some fire and cold damage to enable this, though. Normally this build is pure lightning. So I have fizzes extra cold on the boots to get the cold damage, and then I have flat added fire damage on this jewel right here. So the only reason I have this jewel is for the flat fire damage. So keep that in mind. If you're going to use a Taming, you don't have to use a Taming. This other ring slot is kind of flexible. You can use Shavs here for more ES. You can use another ring instead with more damage. But if you do go with the Taming, you need to have a source of cold and fire damage so that you can chill and ignite. So we have chill, ignite, shock, and brittle from the boots too. So we have 4 ailments, so we're getting almost 200% increased damage from this Taming, plus the 40 all res. So Taming is just an all-around very, very strong choice for a ring. For the chest, we have Fortify and Crit Multi, and the Fortify is up all the time because our attack speed is so crazy fast. And then you just want big defense prefixes, and then I hit a res, and then crafted suppress. If you could get int and actual suppress on this would make the build easier. But just big defense chest. And then the gloves, we have 2 strikes, which I Orb of Conflicted up. And then we have int, suppress, and then defense prefixes. I slammed on life on these gloves, unfortunately. I was hoping to slam on like cold or fire damage so that I wouldn't have to use the jewel for it, but I got unlucky. And then attack speed is your 3rd suffix there. And then mark effect, the eater implicit here is kind of flexible. There's not really a great choice there. You don't want exposure because of res inversion. So you can go with suppress here if you need it. You can go with mark effect or like increased evasion maybe. There's not really great choices there. And then I am using Mageblood, which you don't have to use, but what I'm getting from the Mageblood is Evasion, Silver Flask, Crit Flask, and then I run a Rarity Flask most of the time. And then I have an Avoid Stun suffix, Evasion suffix, and Crit Chance suffix to help me crit cap. So I have 42,000 Evasion on the build without Blind and stuff like that too. I do have Blind on my Mercenary. And so we have a high chance to evade. We have Suppress cap. We have a little bit higher Lightning res because of Purity of Lightning. We have 56 spell suppressed damage prevented, and if we have Fortify, we have the Purity of Lightning. We run Flesh and Stone for more defense. We run Arctic Armor for even more or less damage taken. So the build is very, very tanky. It feels really, really good to play. So that's the gear, and then I run an Explodey Flask, which I have just for mapping. But when I do harder content, I run a Penetration Tincture. And then for the last flask, I swap that out for a ruby, topaz, or sulfur, depending on what content you're doing. The last flask slot is obviously flexible. So that's the gear. I'll talk about the rest of the gems. Mark on hit, Assassin's Mark, which you need for power charge generation and just damage. And then Whirling Blades, faster attacks. The faster attacks gem is completely flexible here. And then a Steel Skin with automation. This More Duration gem is another flex gem. I think I want to swap this out for a Stone Golem, probably would be a better choice, but I just haven't gotten around to doing that yet. So I highly recommend that. And then our aura setup here with Enlighten, which you don't even really need if you have a little bit of mana reservation. Arctic Armor, Purity of Lightning, Discipline. And then we don't use any mana at all except for a Tincture. If you use a Tincture, that will drain the little bit of mana you have, and that's it because of Whispers of Infinity. So you can reserve all your mana. And then for the Hex Touch setup, Bladefall of Charthus with less duration, Hex Touch, Temp Chains. It's very important to keep these gems level 1 with 0 quality to keep the curse duration low. And then less duration, you want 20/20. And then the last gems here is Frostblink, Blood Rage, and Flesh and Stone. Blood Rage, you can sustain the degen from Blood Rage very easily too, and this is how you get easy frenzy charges while mapping. But you don't have to use Blood Rage either. If you're not comfortable with the degen, or if you don't have as good a leech, you don't have to use Blood Rage. So those are the gems. Let me show you the tree. So the tree, you run a Lethal Pride right here. This solves most of your strength. And then the big thing I'm getting from this is Endurance Charge on Kill. If I didn't have Endurance Charge on Kill here, I would probably just put Enduring Cry on my build instead of one of the extra flex gems, which the flexible gems is like the More Duration and the faster attacks. Those are the ones I would drop. And then I have a large cluster here which I fractured on 12 Energy Shield. And so then I crafted it with 3 speed and 4 damage. And then I have extra res here, so now I have like tons of extra fire res. So that's why the res on the shield should be attack speed, because I don't need it. But this cluster jewel is very strong. And then when I level up more, I'd fill in the rest of the points. I have a Watcher's Eye that's decent with Wrath Penetration and Wrath Crit. There's probably a lot better Watcher's Eyes than this. You could also run like a Precision in your links level 1 somewhere, and get really good Watcher's Eye with that. And then this other gem is just for fire damage. Ideally, you'd want fire damage on gloves, and then you could use another insane damage gem here instead of this one. This one's not super good. And then double combat focus jewels. These are how you get pure lightning Wild Strike. You have to run both of these to turn off the cold and turn off the fire versions of Wild Strike. And then you also need to come down here to this skill effect wheel. This is how you get your curse duration to be very low. So my temp chains is 0.46 seconds. If I didn't have this wheel, it would be like closer to 1 second, which would not feel very good for mapping to sustain the Soul Eater. And then this is good because you also, this is not a very big opportunity cost to take this, because we can get a bunch of suppression from here, from Magebane and this wheel here too. So it's not really a huge cost to enable this Coiling Whisper Ring. This Coiling Whisper Ring is just insanely strong. Oh yeah, I also hit a all res corruption on it too, because the regular implicit is chaos res, which you don't need, being CI. And so then this is the rest of the tree. You come up here for Whispers of Doom. The reason you need to run Whispers of Doom is because if you don't, then the Bladefall curse setup will override your Assassin's Mark. So you need to have 2 curses so that you can apply Assassin's Mark, but also keep gaining your Soul Eater stacks. So that's why you need to take Whispers of Doom. And then we go Ghost Reaver for big recovery. That mastery there, the Rune Graft of Treachery, and then I'm running this other Global Defenses Rune Graft too. So that's how my energy shield is up into 8,000 plus. You could even get way more than 8,000 if you had better gear than I have. And then we have the Instant Leech, and then extra suppression, ailment effect for big shocks, accuracy at close range. This is important. Make sure you stay like very close on top of your target, otherwise your accuracy is going to suffer. You could take the accuracy equal to intelligence one if you had more int than I do, but I don't have good gear with good int, but if you did, that would be a better mastery. And there you go, that's the whole tree. And then let's see what else. Cluster options, you could do a holding a shield cluster instead of one like this, and go veteran defender with feed the fury and fuel the fight. That would be also a very good cluster. And then also, instead of the energy shield here, you could go for one with 35 effect, which would give you a lot more damage, but then less energy shield, obviously. So there's a lot of options with the cluster jewel here that you can do. It's very flexible. Okay, I'll talk about the Merc now. So I'm not running Doriani Merc because we have the resin version built into Wild Strike of Extremes. So you can use Garb of the Ephemeral, which gives you crit immunity and action speed immunity. It's very, very good. And then Sign of the Sin Eater on the Merc makes you ailment immune, basically. And this really works good. I don't ever get ailments on me. The only ailments you will get on you is like reflected ones, or like strong boxes will freeze you, because those don't count as coming from enemies. And so this doesn't work against those. So you do need to run the Avoid Freeze Pantheon if you don't run Arctic Armor, actually. So Arctic Armor gives you freeze immunity, and so then you can run this one, and then the rest of the ailments pretty much don't matter. You will be affected by Shocked Ground and Chilled Ground. So I run that's why I do the Cannot Be Chilled boots for the Chilled Ground, basically. And then the Shocked Ground, you will be affected by that, so keep that in mind. And then the Merc runs Anathema with an Enfeeble glove. This is totally optional. You could put anything else you want here, but if you do run a Curse on Hit glove on the Merc, then he has to have +2 curses, because we already do the 2 curses ourselves, so he needs to have +2 curses. So if you could run Anathema. If not, you could run Doedri Ring plus Wind Scream, or plus another source of additional curse. And then he runs Comb's Binding for Fizz converted to fire. It's very strong. Perkle's Toe for lucky damage. I anointed Last Rites on there to disable enemies' recharge and less life regen. And then also less life regen on the helmet. So enemies have like almost no life regen. It's very good. And then the other scepter has Blind on it, and then Wrath effect. So we get big Wrath damage from this mercenary. And then Blind is good too, just for QOL. And then he has Sapped Ground Boots with just generic like life and res. So the Merc is pretty tanky. He almost never dies, but occasionally he will die in like really juiced content or tier 17s. And then you want the Wrath Merc here. The Zealotry doesn't really matter. I had this because I was playing Penance Brand, but it does give you Consecrated Ground a lot of times from your Blade Fall. So the Consecrated Ground will give you curse reduction. So that's actually, it does something. It's not completely useless. So there you go. That's the Merc setup. And then what else? The other big thing on the build is that I'm going a Claw setup, but you could also run this build on Ephemeral Edge or with Energy Blade. Both of those would also be very strong. You would need to modify the build quite a bit. If you went Energy Blade, you would have a lot more damage with Energy Blade, but you would have way less energy shield. And so if you went Energy Blade, all you would really need to do is like drop this Claw Wheel, and then you could put those points into almost anything you want. You could come down to Lethality, Primeval. You could get more energy shield, come up here more, get the Int Wheel up here, maybe take the Lightning Wheel up here. So Energy Blade would free up some points, and it would have more damage but less energy shield. And then Ephemeral Edge is kind of the same story. And then I already talked about enabling the Taming damage. You need to have some Cold and Fire. And I think that's about all I need to talk about. Veteran's Wrath Anoint on the Amulet for Rage on Hit, which is very, very good. And yeah, that's the character. The build has been insanely fun. It's insanely powerful. I'm probably going to level this character to 100 if I can. I don't know if I'm going to have time before Gauntlet starts. I'm going to be playing Gauntlet, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, that's the build. Hope you guys have fun. Thanks for watching my video. Subscribe to the channel, and have fun in the league. Have fun in Gauntlet if you're playing it, and see you next time.